recording. Welcome. Great. So we're just inviting anyone to share kind of gleanings thus far in having experienced this class, and really just as a placeholder to prepare us, not necessarily about a topic itself.
Rabbi, I want to thank all of you. I've spoken to Rabbi Jessica too. And, you know, I'm on a journey here back. I don't think he never really left. But back to community. And never really left Judaism. Can't, it's in my head. But back to community, and you guys have made the trip a little bit, feel a little safer for me. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you. You're a pivot point in a trajectory that I didn't know how I was going to turn, and you're helping me make that turn. Thank you all.
Wow. That's so powerful, Rebecca, because I think in some ways you just kind of nailed what the high holidays is all about. You know, whether we're pros or regulars or whatever either of those things mean, this is a homecoming for all of us, and tradition actually says that we've all kind of lost our keys over the year. So it's an opportunity for us all to kind of find our way again. So I get that. Anybody else want to share what you're? Yeah, Philip, I see your hand.
Yeah, well, as a complete novice, actually a future Ger Tashav, I would have to say one of the things that's been fascinating for me this last week is when I've had time, I've been Googling about the holidays themselves, about Rosh Hashanah, what does it mean, Yom Kippur, and all that. I come at it musically. The melodies from Yom Kippur are well known and have been part of my life for a long time. But the overall holidays and what they mean and what you eat and how often you blow the shofar and so forth and so on has been really fascinating for a novice.
I hear that. Yeah, that's great, Philip. And you always bring so much to these conversations. Each of you really, it's inspiring that you all want to keep learning and are here to do that. So it's all now up and running. My reclaimed. I'm gonna leave.
You're muted now, Rabbi.
Thank you. Never a dull moment. Thank you, Philip. So let's dive in with our blessing over this opportunity to learn with La'asok b'divrei Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Wonderful. Amen. Amen. Great. So we have been really taking this ride together, and tonight we are looking into the fourth world. And I'm going to share our screen so far of what we've journeyed through. Sorry if your eyes are dizzy. Here we go. So we'll begin as we started with the melody that we've been starting each of these conversations with, Ein Od Milvado. And for those of you who are just on tonight, this is the kind of awareness that whether we have one world or 12 worlds, there is one essence that holds them all, and one God that holds them all, and one oneness, at one-ment is another way to think about this season in and of itself. So if you know it by now, of course, join in. Ein od milvado, ein od milvado, Hashem hu Elohim. Ein od milvado, ein od milvado, Hashem hu Elohim. Do it just 2 more times, and maybe just close your eyes or allow really this leap of awareness from the particular to the integrated. Ein od milvado, ein od milvado, Hashem hu Elohim. Ein od milvado, ein od milvado, Hashem hu Elohim. Great. So in preparation for tonight, I was really thinking that, this 4 worlds is really a frame for the entire journey of our lives, for the high holidays for sure. And I wanted to give you the direct question right now of, is there an aspect of these 4 worlds, whether it's our conversation that we did about Merkava mysticism, Ezekiel and the chariot, or Zohar and Chaim Vital, Luria is where we spent most of our time looking at this vocabulary of God withdrawing to create this vortex that would then shatter these vessels of light and make room for our place in the universe, causing these shvirata kelim, the breaking of the vessels, and then perpetuating our next step, which is to try to grab these sparks of light from everywhere around us and within us, to bring tikkun, to bring healing. So is there an element of the 4 worlds, and I'll show you before you can start thinking about that, but the worlds themselves that we've gone through, Asiyah, we looked at the energy around sleep and the tikkun really through sleep. Then we went to Yetzirah and talked about our food and our eating. Bria, last week we looked at silence and meditation, and tonight we're exploring sensuality. And the chart that we've been looking, just to get everybody again on the same page, tonight we're in this realm of spirit, and the kavanah, or in some ways one of the names for God, is mysticism and mystery and wholeness. There's an element of fire that is present in this world of spirit. Ruach Elohim, literally the kind of wind or energy of movement of fire. And
there's 15, and there's Jessica Marshall, and then I don't know any of the people.
So is there something that arises when you kind of look back at this this chart or this experience of a specific world that you're, that has moved you in any way?
Rabbi, I think it's interesting that this first sphere here has Kavanah,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see why it's there, but it's also, we're looking at the structural part of it. So the Kavanaugh, our intentionality here, it seems to it would pervade the entire chart.
Hmm.
But so why just on these four? And especially the last one, understanding God as a mystery.
Mhm.
So I don't see why that's there. I'm talking about the Kavanaugh.
Uh-huh. Right. Why there's not one Kavanah for all of the four worlds? Is that, am I understanding?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that in some ways is a great point. And that's the kind of faceting, this is a diamond and these are facets. And there are all of these kavanot really flow through the whole diamond. It's just from one angle you see it, perhaps in one from one perspective. But I think you're making a great point, John. Absolutely. And that's the kind of blurriness that I was hoping we would get to tonight, honestly, because there is so much structure in Judaism, and I think there's a way in which all that structure is to make us dizzy so that we can blur it all together. In the sense of these four worlds was developed to try to kind of grasp the impossible. And let's go from there actually to tonight's conversation on sensuality and the spirit, because this fourth world comes out of a description of in Torah and the study and the learning of Torah. There's an acronym called Pardes. Let me see if I can enlarge this a bit. And sensuality really is in the realm of sod, in the realm of mystery. So if you track also our learning of these four worlds to each of these levels of what is understood as traditional interpretation of Torah, meaning that you can read a verse or a word or a space in the Torah from four different layers, almost topographical layers. You can read it as a very simple meaning. You can read it as a hint. You can read it as an insight or as the mystery, which is what we're kind of exploring tonight. And this is yet again another matrix upon which Jewish tradition has come up with to say, how is it that we learn? And the four worlds is the question of, how is it that we understand the cosmos? So there are endless matrices of how is it that we do anything? How is it that we understand our place in the world? Does that make sense? What I'm sort of getting at? We have all these rubrics, and in some ways the complexity creates the simplicity. That's also, a way to think about ein od milvado, that there are all these ways in which God shows up in the world, and they all come together as one. Any questions or thoughts or insights on this new rubric? I know I've been giving you a lot of nuggets here.
I know that if I could, don't mind the one of the things I found that in life is going in the teams in the same circle. Hopefully you do better each time. But when so when I look at this, I think, okay, so I read it and then I process it from my own perspective. I think about it and study it with you guys. But in the end, I'm back at the end where I don't really know anything. I have to go back to the beginning and read it again. And that's what the study of Torah has always been. What the new year is about. I'm going to go back to this all over. I'm going to start with Bereshit, go all the way through it again. week after week. And then when we get to the end, think, oh, we know this, and then realize, no, we don't. It's a mystery.
Mhm.
And I think the facet part is part of the mystery is, I think I know it, life shifts, and suddenly I'm looking at it differently. It's just circular.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love thinking of it as a circular. This should be a circle. I think that would be a great graphic. Yeah, and the, Shana, I was exploring with the kids the other day. Rosh Hashanah, it's the head of the Shana, the new year, but a Shana is also a cycle. And a cycle, is a wheel. And that's why we have the round challah and all of that. But it is an evolution. So a little bit more about this structure, because it's a very cool one to take with you, whatever you're up to next in your Jewish learning. And just to point out, the reason something is called to give a drash on something is here. It's the third layer. It's because it's beyond the pshat and it's beyond the remez. It's that moving to the level of insight or expounding upon. And then so this layer of mystery is often associated with Kabbalah and really the ungraspable, and yet we try. So there is a teaching that I found really beautiful related to this idea of sensuality and this structure of pardes, that if we remove the sod, meaning if we take off this last layer, we're left with Pei Resh Daled, with the first three letters of that acrostic, which means actually to separate. To separate or to disattach. And so Torah and I would, extend our lives without that sense of mystery is like a fruit separated from the tree. Which, as we're thinking tonight about, and maybe not even thinking, as we're kind of sensing this conversation around sensuality, there's a way in which, as we know, especially during times of COVID, without physical intimacy and contact with each other and even seeing people's mouths, we have been forever changed as a world people. Things have shifted because that level of sod in terms of intimacy has shifted so dramatically over these past couple years. So I'll take us through, and the practice or the invitation, of course, is to speak up at any point. I see there's a couple notes in the chat. Let me just look. Oh, Chris, good. I'm glad you're here. Fixed. I love that. Nice. And Sabina, I see your note. I'll give you the source of that, the chart. Maybe just let me know which chart you're thinking of. Great. So this acrostic of Pardes comes from the Talmud, and it's actually fascinating. I hadn't realized it before, but there's discrepancies between the two Talmuds on the description itself, not of the layers, but of what's coming next, which is the description of 4 people that enter this Pardes and what happened to them. So this is a famous parable in Jewish tradition that I wanted you to kind of just at least know about, because it takes this concept, this tool of Pardes, and personalizes it. And there's a way in which these archetypes, we can see ourselves potentially in them, which is a cool exercise. So these 4 scholars enter the Pardes, Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, and Acher, who is Elisha, but he's called Acher because he's the kind of uprooter of Torah. He's a kind of outcast, an apikoros, as tradition calls it, and Rabbi Akiva. Here it's Akiba. And what happened to each of them? So just to back up a tiny moment. So this description that we're about to read of what happened to each of them it's describing basically what happens when people encounter the divine. Here, that divine is found within the Pardes, but it could be, it could be anything. It could be how is it that these four people enter Rosh Hashanah? How is it they enter the grocery store? How is it that they enter when they have a crisis in their life? How is it that they enter, what it means to prepare for their own death? You could kind of fill in the blanks here. It's a rubric. Okay, so Ben Azai, when experiencing the Pardes, the garden, looked and died. Ben Zoma looked and went mad. Achar kind of flailed about and destroyed the plants. And Rabbi Akiva entered in peace and departed in peace. Any thoughts or comments about this? It's such a groovy and fascinating parable in Talmud. Have you all heard this parable?
I've heard it, but I forgot it.
Yeah.
You'll have to enlighten me.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. We forget everything. And then it comes back around. So what I'm saying, John, is that this Pardes is another layer to this idea of the four worlds, that not only are they four worlds, but they're four kind of dimensions of reality. And so that was one piece that I wanted to bring tonight in light of the conversation of sensuality, because it's very hard to describe or even get into what is this conversation around sensuality. And so when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, it could be so many things. And in fact, we're not going to, this isn't a moment to say it's this or it's that, but what is the kind of whoosh or the sense of it? And to me, it speaks to this level of sod. It speaks to this level of some encounter that changes us, that alters us. And so that got me thinking, well, that description really describes, in my mind, this idea of Pardes, because each one of these people experience it totally differently, respond to it totally differently, integrate it totally differently. Sabina.
Would you go back a little bit in the story and tell us how they got to the garden and what that represented?
Yeah, I don't have any more on that page, but I'll say I don't know if there's actually like a context. It's not like Talmud kind of says, here they were by a well, and then they went to the garden. It just kind of jumps in to say that there were these sages that entered the garden and this is what happens to them, which is dramatic in and of itself.
I read this story many, many years ago, and I can't remember. There was a preparation and how they got there and where they were.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe to somebody else. No, it's in Masechet Hagiga, which is about the holidays, and I think that the route to discover more would be to look where it is on the page itself. Okay. Yeah, and then let me know. I would love to be reminded as well.
I was going to ask a similar question, Sabina, like, what do we know about these four stages that they reacted differently? When we know about their character, about where they, so that if I wanted to follow the lessons of going in peace, coming out, how do I do that?
Well, that's perfect, Rebecca. That's where we're going, because Rabbi Akiva, and it would be cool to trace each of them. I mean, it's not just like, how do I be Rabbi Akiva? Although he's, incredible example, but it's really what I love about that parable is it's it's the dimensions that each of them bring,
Right.
because we're never, it's like the four questions and the four, children at Pesach. We're not one archetype in and of itself. It's most likely that we're aspects of all of them. So this structure, again, of four elements is used all the time. The four questions, the four cups, the four worlds. Here we have the four sages. So I just wanted you to see that in relationship with this conversation around sensuality. So in terms of Rabbi Akiva, which is going to set us up for our next kind of textual exploration, you're asking the same question that I asked, which is how did he get out alive, and peaceful? And Rabbi Akiva, it was just amazing. It said that he began learning in his 40s and had never touched Torah before. And his most beloved text of all the texts is the Song of Songs, the Shirat, Song of Songs, my God, Shir Shirim. Thanks. I was like so twisted in my brain. Shir Shirim. Thank you. And why is that? Rabbi Akiva is known as a great lover, and Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, is basically this erotic love poem. So I wanted to kind of take us through just a few of the verses in Shir Shirim, because I think there's a way in which this is really the heart opening kind of, this is the hope that through love everything else becomes possible, especially during the high holidays. I just read an incredible piece by one of my teachers, Rabbi Or Rose, that says the acrostic for this month of Elul is Ani Lidodi Vidodi Li. I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. And really that's to remind us that it's only through that sense of dod, of being in relationship, that we can do any of the work that's hopefully about to happen during the high holidays. Only through love can we soften. So here's what Rabbi Akiva found so juicy in Shir Shirim, and I offer this to all of us as kind of like, what would it mean? And this is a quote by my teacher, Rabbi Arthur Green, but he asked the question often of what would it mean to live with eyes of Shir Shirim, to live as that being our theology, which is complicated. And I know that people have very different relationships to sensuality and sexuality and all of these things. That's where, this language of sod might be helpful to some of us. What is mystery? And sensuality is definitely in the mix. So just gonna pull up the.
Rabbi Solon,
Yes.
I could be wrong on this, but I once studied, I think, the book River of Light. Is that by Rabbi Kushner?
Yes.
He goes into the whole story of the Pardes in that book.
Oh,
I
cool.
could be wrong, but that's what just came to me. So.
I love that. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, and he's Rabbi Harold Kushner is really a master of synthesizing very complex texts for kind of all of us. So that's a great tip. Thank you. So does somebody want to just kind of swoon a bit and read out these verses, get us in the mood, as they say?
Let me read the first one.
Great.
Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away from here. The winter is past, flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing, harvest is here. The song of the dove is heard in the land. Let us go down to the vineyards. to see the vines are budding. There I will give you my love.
Beautiful. Great.
Lovely.
So there is and this is also the Pardes, you could think of this as the Pardes and how they got there, to play with this a little bit. Maybe these sages were in this very vineyard, wandering around. Does somebody want to take the next one? I'll put it all on the same page.
I just wanted to observe the multivalenced word,
Yeah.
singing and harvesting. Eight hazamir higia. Zamir is also hazamir is even, I think, the nightingale, the singer, and Lismore really, I think, is to prune.
Right, exactly.
And so there's the singing, that there's also the particular focus of what to prune and what to keep, back to Kavanagh again. And how do we focus?
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, and I love that, because it's not all you have to prune in order for things to grow. And so that's a very deep, I think, insight, especially as we go into this season. Beautiful. Hazan Yossi, do you want to read this next one or chant it, and we can read it, or whatever you'd like?
Okay, let's see. I'm on the small print, so I'll take my glasses off.
Oh, here.
This one, your body was like a palm tree, your breasts clusters of dates. I said, I will climb up that palm tree. I will grab its branches. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes on the vine, the scent of your breathing like apples, and the inside of your mouth like good wine, going straight to my lover, lubricating sleeper's lips. I am my lover's. His desire is upon me. Ani ladodi ve'alai shukato.
Awesome.
Oh.
So, Rabbi Akiva, coming back to your question, Rebecca, of who was he? Rabbi Akiva said, take the rest of Torah, leave me only Song of Songs. This is all he wanted. And we're going to kind of get ready to transition to Rabbi Jessica, and I'll just leave you with this teaching that I just shared, which is, and I was struck by that verse that was just read on Nila Dodi, because it's connected to the name of Elul itself, which is Anila Dodi Vidodi Li, the acrostic used for Elul in 6:3 of Song of Songs. And you'll often see this on people's wedding rings or ketubot. It really has become kind of the Jewish word for love in a lot of ways. Is these 4 words, Ani Lidodi Vidodi Li. And then if you take out the first letter of each of those 4 words, you get the word Elul, which is the name of the Hebrew month that we are in right now, the month prior to the holidays. Does that follow for everybody? Okay, and then that verse is found within this text itself. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He browses among the lilies. So my teacher, Rabbi Rose, says that as we approach Rosh Hashanah and continue the tshuva journey, let us do so with a loving spirit, attempting to infuse all of our acts of judgment with kindness and mercy. So there's, and it's about us doing this, but it's also about considering that hopefully God is also doing this, that God is soft in God's judgment, and sensing in God's seeing us at this time, granting us for what is hopefully to come, a new year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rabbi Jessica Marshall for her amazing sharing.
Thank you, Rabbi Solomon. I loved what you said at the beginning about how we're presented with all of these kinds of different facets, different levels, different understandings, and they can be kind of dizzying, but that's precisely the point, that we're kind of turned topsy-turvy, and then we can find our own grounding within that. I thought that was really beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an honor to be with your community. Thank you for this invite. Rabbi Solomon and I go way back, so it's very, very sweet to be with all of you. So I'd love to ask, just to start, how many of you saw the title for today's session and felt, whoa, this is a little bit over my head here, like this feels a little bit of a growth edge to me? How many of you felt that way a little bit? Any hands? A few people. Okay. And how many of you felt, oh yeah, like let's get into this stuff? Also, good. All right, we got a pretty good mix, like half and half. Wonderful. So for me, I'll just share one of the reasons I love this particular topic of divine sensuality is that for me, one of life's greatest adventures is this truth that we are both human in all that it means to be human, all that we navigate on our human journey, and that we are also divine, right? That we're these beautiful souls, so much bigger than these human bodies that we're in, and yet we're also navigating this modern world with all of the kind of very physical, distinct limitations that are on it. So I know that the more that I integrate my own divinity into my humanness, that I can infuse spirit, source, mystery into each moment of my humanness, the more joy that comes forth, the more I get to show up as love, the more things flow, the less suffering that I'm in. And one of the things that's come through for me even more, I used to feel very much like it was a tug of war, like I was so clear that what my soul wanted was to be love and joy in the world, my neshama, right? My soul, soak up every delectable bit of this experience that we get as humans. But like, my goodness, I'm dealing with taxes and email and, the DMV, and just, right? Like this tug of war between the truth of my divinity and just navigating human life, right? And what I have found lately is that I can actually put down that rope, that I don't have to be in a tug of war when I remember this, that it's actually a sacred integration. It's a sacred integration between all of these sides of us. And when we allow our divinity and our sensuality to unify and to come together, we can be guided through life with the highest perspective. So we're going to play with that a little bit. It was so great. Rabbi Solomon was like, okay, divine sensuality, 5 minutes, go. I was like, well, this is a great challenge. Wonderful. I'm up for it. So there's 2 things that I want to share with us. And then we're actually going to turn inward a little bit and reflect. So the first is that the divine created our sexuality, our sensuality. It is holy, and it is our path to divinity. So just want to affirm that so deeply for us. I know we all have so many different backgrounds and also traumas in terms of our sensuality and our sexuality. And I want to offer the deepest truth that it is holy and it is our path to holiness. So that's the first one. And the second one is a quote from Talmud. This comes from Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud from Tractate Kiddushin. And it says that everyone will be called to account for the legitimate pleasures which he or she has failed to enjoy. That like at the end of our life, if we haven't soaked up all of the pleasures that life offers us, we'll be called to account for that. Pleasure, right? There it is. And it's really interesting because as you go on and look at this part of the Talmud, it kind of goes into the importance of saying the Shehechianu, right? Our blessing for doing something new for the first time. So there's this idea that everything can be made holy and everything deserves a blessing, especially pleasure. Okay. Our sensuality and our sexuality is how we unify all of these beautiful different facets of the diamond that is us. And I find that for me, my sensuality is a way that grounds me into the physicality of being human and connects me to the mystery, all that is unseen, divinity. So that's what we're going to explore. We're going to start with, before I jump in, any questions about some of the things I just shared?
Yes, Rabbi, I have a question. As much of what you're speaking about right now and what you said in these two foundational points, is a lot of that intended to be metaphorical?
In terms of what pieces? In terms of like,
In the way that you're presenting it here with for example, when you said if we haven't soaked up all the pleasures of life at the end of our life, then we're going to be held accountable. But you can interpret pleasures in so many ways.
for sure. Yeah. And you can interpret accountable in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, Judaism is not an ascetic religion, right? There's a lot of emphasis on delicious food and celebration, right? And on oneg and joy and connection, right? And
sex.
And sex and expressing love and all of these things. So this idea that then, like, there are many ways that each of us get to interpret pleasure, and it's different for each of us, and sensuality is different for each of us, which is what we're going to do in a moment. So metaphorical, yes, I guess because these concepts are so vast and so rich, we're each going to bring our own understanding and our own connection to them, I would say. Does that kind of answer what yeah, okay.
John, there's also a way, the text I think that Rabbi Marshall is speaking to is this idea that on Rosh Hashanah, basically our lives are held in a balance, and that God, the balance either will tilt this way or that way. So this idea of being judged will then determine if we will live in the year to come. That's the giant metaphor that the holiday season is engaged with. Our lives hang in the balance based on our deeds.
And Rabbi, that starts with Rosh Hashanah, those 2 days, Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, it's coming.
I mean, that's where the balance, that's
Yes.
where we begin to experience it.
Yeah, and then by the end of Yom Kippur, it's kind of decided. And then what that brings up for me, what Rabbi Salman just shared, is what does it mean to really live, right? Who will live and who will die? We can be very much alive and feel dead inside, right? So, okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to invite us to write in the chat, or if you want to share out loud, that's great too. When you feel connected to divinity, to God, to source, to the mystery, what are the words you would use to describe it? When you feel connected to divinity, what are the words you would use to describe it? I'll put that question in the chat too. It can be one word, can be a line of poetry. It can be anything. Or if you don't want to type, you can just unmute and share. Oh, these are really beautiful. Okay, so immense. I love that, Harry. Alive. Shalom or peace. Whole and connected. These are really beautiful. I love how they're all a little bit different. Yeah, Janine, no words. It's an inner experience beyond words, right? I would say. Yeah. Energy.
Often move to tears.
Move to tears. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that, Yossi. The tears have been flowing so freely for me lately in a really beautiful way of feeling like just so much more connected to sides of myself that had been pushed down for a long time. So I love that you said that. Ecstatic and joyful flow and connection. Oh, these are all so beautiful, everyone. Okay, I love it. Okay, so now holding each of those, and do you have notebooks with you or journals or anything like that? Do people have? Okay, so write yours down if you want to. All these different ways you feel connected. And that the next question is, what sense guides your sensual experience the most? Or what senses guide your sensual experience the most? So I'll share a few possibilities, right? We have the 5 senses: physical touch, sound, sight, taste, and smell. And then I added a few because I'm a little bit of a rebel. And I said the feeling of energy, which can be a felt sense, or the feeling of being in our imagination. So just share in the chat or say out loud, what guides your sensual experience the most? And this can be something that feels non-sexual or sexual or both, and you can have many. Okay, beautiful. So the Elenu Prayer, breath, I love that, Carolyn. Taste, smell, and sound, beautiful, Philip. So John, tell us more about the Elenu Prayer, because that's such a cool answer. Can you say more? Oh, you're muted.
Well, I'm not a terribly spiritual person, but in the when we say that prayer has a communal effect that has kind of a multiplying effect on me, and it really embraces the moment for me.
I love that. I love that. I'm so glad I asked you. Yeah, so it's like that the power of this group coming together has its own energy and kind of carries us somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I have felt that too, John, in like a really good song session, where we're all singing and we're just like creating this whole new energy as us coming together. Okay, beautiful. Noah said, the thoughts in my mind and where my imagination takes me. Noah, I'm right there with you. I'm very similar. I can get just so connected with my sensual side in my imagination. So I love these. Okay, and Harry.
Marshall, can I also, when adding to the song, when I say Modani in the morning and I'm all alone, I'm like in my head, but I can sing Modani in my head. My day is different, and just start the day that way brings it all to me first thing in the morning. I know exactly what it is I'm doing. I'm so grateful for the day. I get to do it again. I wake up with a different attitude.
I love that, Rebecca. And I think for me too, when you said like starting with the quiet of the morning, there's something about that like sacred silence of the morning, right? That then
the song is in your head.
And then the song is in your head, and it's like this mingling of sound and silence together. Yeah, beautiful. These are beautiful, everyone. Okay, so Harry said, taste coupled with smell elicits strong mental imagery. Yes, for sure. Food and drink can take us beyond the moment we're into a moment of recollection. I love that, Harry. Yeah, every time I have like Welch's grape juice, it's like kiddish juice, right? I mean, it takes me right back to like being 4 as a little kid, in the sanctuary at Oneg. So those things, they have such visceral memories. And Rabbi Solomon said sweat and physical expression. Yeah, those endorphin rushes, dancing, right? Okay, these are all so good. You're all so beautifully in touch. So I want to give us a practice for the week to try on. And this is to play with how your connection to divinity wants to dance with your connection to sensuality. So you each listed kind of these two things and see how they might want to mingle together. We can approach it from a place of curiosity, from a place of playfulness, right? There's no right or wrong. It's just a practice to kind of try on. And I'll share one more thing that's been really helpful for me as I've nurtured my own relationship with divinity, is to remember that it's really a relationship, that the more that we nurture it, like any relationship that we're in, the more that we get back, right? So that I get to listen to spirit, mystery source. I get to be in dialogue with it. I get to see how it responds to me, right? That there's this kind of symbiosis together. So that's a practice to try on. And I'm going to put that into the chat too, so everyone has it. Any questions from this just little nugget that we tried on together? Questions or anything that arose for you? Thank you for all of your beautiful shares and your willingness and your openness. It really, I just felt like each of you opened me up to new ways of thinking about divinity, of thinking about sensuality. I mean, I never would have said the Elenu, but now I feel it in a whole new way, right? The way that it can carry us. So thank you, everyone. It's really an honor to be with all of you.
I asked the question, Rabbi Marshall, can you give us a tip for how we can do that? Like when you first started, you were so right. I try to do it early in the morning and then the day happens. I have 200 emails and the service person puts me on hold, whatever. You complain. How do you, can you give us some tips for how do we come back to that from one moment to the next throughout the day, no matter what else is happening?
Such a great question, Rebecca. I like to think that I'm a Zen goddess all day long, but that does not seem to be the case. So I think there's a few things. One is just to kind of notice from a place of total non-judgment. It's about, being in tune with these beautiful, sweet bodies that we're given and noticing, okay, am I starting to feel aggravated or disconnected or doing things mindlessly, like I know for myself, even like I'll start to kind of just snack because, boredom or whatever it is, right? So it's just noticing and then saying, oh, there's an opportunity here to connect with spirit or with divinity in a deeper way, and to really allow ourselves to be in the moment of like, what feels most aligned to me in this moment, because it changes, it shifts, right? Just like our emotions change and shift throughout the day. Sometimes we want something softer. Sometimes we want something more fiery, right? So it's just to kind of catch ourselves. I also love doing any sort of like a gentle bell at different times throughout the day, like I do mine at 11:11 and 1:11 and just some of those magical numbers of like, okay, I'm going to take 60 seconds right now and get into my body and reconnect with that part of me. And I love breath, Philip, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, breath is a really good one. And then
I want to know what you do to notice. Like I was looking for the Zen goddess answer, I guess, because what I'm asking is, how do I remind myself to notice from one moment to the next?
What I would say, yeah. You have to play, it's different for every person. Like some people love a little app on their phone that says a little chime that reminds them every hour to connect. Some people love
that idea.
A buddy, someone that they're checking in with once through the day and they're texting to check in. Other people, are good at just kind of noticing like, oh, when I'm clenching my jaw or something like that, then that's kind of my cue. Or when I drink my coffee, you know, afterwards, I'm going to take a moment to connect inward a little bit more. So what I would invite you to do is think about what are the cues that would feel natural for you and aligned for you, that might be ways that you can start to kind of create some habits or patterns for yourself.
Or I could give it all up and just daven all day.
Problem solved.
Rabbi Jessica, I
you.
want to thank you so much. You just reminded me how much I love you, and
Nice.
how inspiring it is to continue to travel on the path. And no, I saw your hand. I just want to also kind of honor our time and leave you in the chat also with Rebecca and everybody, the 4 practices that we've been working with so far. And tonight's take home would be the practice of devekut, of clinging to God. And tradition speaks of that in terms of clinging through mitzvot, but really it's intimacy of any kind. You know, it could be folding a napkin, or, washing your face. And then the 3 that we looked at prior are also kind of, just to recap, because what we've been doing these 4 weeks is like how to keep some of this with us. So Heat Bodedut, we talked about the first session in terms of calling out, just blast it out, just let it out, whatever it is. Brachot, pausing, saying a blessing, making one up. And this notion of shiviti, of coming into presence. It could be that bell, that Rabbi Marshall's describing. It could be putting, touching your earlobe. But these are ways that we can return. And that's the whole thing. Tshuva is to return, of perhaps to a place that we have never been before. I want to thank everybody for being on this journey, and just for going on the ride, and may your trajectory over these next few weeks be sweet and filled with love and softness and connection.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. It's been a wonderful ride here.
Thank you all so much. Shana Tova Metuka.
Thank you.
Santa Barbara, keep proud.
Thank you all.